Mavis the pony lives in fluffy gardens. Mavis lives here at 2 Gallop Lane to be precise. Mavis loves to trot slowly and carefully around her large garden. When she gets tired, she comes back inside for a rest and a sandwich. A sandwich filled with hay. Lots of ponies eat hay, but only Mavis eats it between 2 yummy slices of thick white bread. Did you notice that Mavis has no flowers in her garden? Well, that's because they make her sneeze. Any time a flower grows in her garden, Mavis slowly and carefully picks it and puts it aside for Mr. Johnson the panda, who loves flowers. Mavis does everything slowly and carefully because, as it happens, Mavis is awfully afraid of hurting herself. She might even scrape her knees. That would be terrible. Nobody likes to scrape their knees, do they? Our story begins with a sneeze. A big sneeze, just like that. Standing at Mavis's front door was a large bunch of flowers. And standing behind the large bunch of flowers was Max the zebra. "These are for you," shouted Max. Max loved to shout. "Oh no," protested Mavis. "Flowers make me sneeze." But Max barged right inside and put down his suitcase. "I'm your long-lost cousin Max," he bellowed. "I've come to stay for a while, so you and I can have some adventures." Now, Mavis didn't really like adventures. There's nothing like an adventure to lead to a terrible knee scraping. But as Mavis stood worrying about her knees, Max was already out in the garden planning one. "What are you doing?" asked Mavis. "I'm setting up hurdles," Max answered. "What are hurdles?" asked Mavis, which may have been just what you were thinking. "Hurdles," Max explained at the top of his voice, "are for jumping over." "I'm not sure I like that at all," said Mavis, who was wondering how she could jump over the hurdles without tripping up. "I'll show you," shouted Max, and he set off at a steady jog. He ran up to the first hurdle and jumped. Whee! He jumped over with a big beamy smile on his face. "Now you try it," he shouted to Mavis. Mavis thought about this for a little while. Then she ran into the house and hid in the kitchen. She was too afraid to jump. Later that day, Max told Mavis that the next adventure was to climb the tallest tree in the garden. Mavis looked up at the tall tree. "I'm not sure I like that at all," said Mavis, who was wondering how she would possibly climb up the tree without falling. "I'll show you," shouted Max, and he set off up the tree. Higher and higher he climbed. He reached a large branch with a big beamy smile on his face. "Now you try it," he shouted to Mavis. Mavis thought about this for a little while. Can you guess what she did next? She ran into the house and hid in the kitchen. She was too afraid to climb. Even later that day, Max the zebra had set up a trampoline right in the garden. Max explained that the next adventure was to bounce all the way to the sky. "I'm not sure I like that at all," said Mavis, who was wondering how she would bounce without hitting her head or scraping her knees. "I'll show you," shouted Max, and he jumped onto the trampoline. Whee! He bounced higher and higher. "Now you try it," he shouted to Mavis. Well, I'm sure you know by now what Mavis did next, don't you? That's right. She ran into the house. But just as she reached the house, she passed the flowers that Max had brought. Mavis sneezed such a thunderous sneeze that she was thrown back out into the garden straight onto the trampoline. Up and down she bounced. Whee! Mavis couldn't believe it. She was having the time of her life. It really was great fun. "This really is a great adventure," she said to Max. Just as Max fell off the trampoline and scraped his knees. He had been twirling and bouncing far too hard. "Oh dear," said Mavis. And as Mavis put little plasters on both his knees, they made an agreement. Mavis promised to have more adventures because she'd had so much fun with Max. And Max promised to be a little more careful in future. In fact, for his next adventure, he would do something safe and careful. Something with no running around, no jumping and no bouncing. Something maybe even a little dull. Flower arranging. Mavis shot up into the air with a humongous sneeze and landed on her roof. She looked down at Max and said, "I'm not sure I like that at all."